There are villages in this world where survival is not a choice, but a daily battle against nature itself. Perched on cliffs, floating on water, or hidden deep within unforgiving landscapes, these places exist where life should be impossible. Every path is dangerous, every moment uncertain, and every day demands resilience beyond imagination. You will see settlements built on freezing permafrost, fragile reeds and harsh volcanic rock. You will witness homes clinging to vertical cliffs and communities suspended above the open ocean. How do humans survive in these brutal environments? And more importantly, why do they refuse to leave? This journey will take you across the most unforgiving corners of our planet. We will explore hidden spaces that push the absolute limits of human endurance. Yet against all odds, people continue to live, adapt, and endure in ways that defy logic and limits. These are the impossible villages where danger is constant, but so is the strength to survive. Inle Funaya village, along the northern coast of Kyoto in Japan, is known as a unique coastal settlement, where wooden houses stand directly beside the water and connect closely with traditional fishing life. Rows of two-story wooden houses appear along the shoreline, creating an unusual coastal architectural landscape. More than 230 Funaya houses now line the bay, forming a continuous band of wooden buildings following the natural curve of the water edge. The Funaya architectural style dates back to about the 17th century, showing how residents designed homes that function together with boat docking and fishing work. In many homes, the lower level remains a docking space for fishing boats, while the main living area continues to operate on the upper floor. One massive storm could end everything. Living here requires absolute synchronization with the ocean. Fishermen do not dock at a distant harbor or walk miles to reach their vessels. They sail their boats straight into the base of their homes. The lower level operates as an open water garage where workers haul their daily catch onto wet wooden floorboards, while the tide gently rocks the massive support pillars beneath them. They designed the upper floors as elevated living spaces, perfectly balancing the weight of human life with the unpredictable movement of the sea. However, this serene landscape hides a terrifying reality. The wooden support pillars rest directly within an active, shifting tidal zone. Violent Pacific typhoons, global rising sea levels, and the ever-present shadow of sudden coastal tsunamis threaten to erase the entire village. A single massive storm surge could easily swallow the lower floors and drag these historic homes deep into the bay. The same ocean that provides their daily food also acts as a permanent silent threat to their existence. Remaining in Ain is a daily choice to embrace extreme fragility. The people here accept the danger binding their legacy to the very water that could easily destroy them. They have turned extreme vulnerability into a quiet, enduring way of life. While these coastal families anchor their survival to the unpredictable ocean, other communities have sought refuge far away from the tides. Climbing thousands of feet into the cold air, a completely different, mist-covered isolation waits. Deep within a high mountain basin, another group of people built a foreign world at the very edge of the sky. How does a piece of ancient China end up stranded on the misty peaks of Southeast Asia, hidden deep within the northernmost mountains of Thailand, completely enveloped by morning fog, lies Ban Rak Thai. You are looking at a settlement that seems geographically out of place, a foreign enclave locked away at the edge of the sky. The community wraps entirely around a quiet, reflective lake, trapped within heavily forested slopes that visually cut it off from the modern world. Instead of the bamboo structures typical of the region, the residents here live inside heavy earthen houses, crowned with traditional Chinese tile roofs. The village sits at an elevation of roughly 6,000 feet, an altitude nearly equal to stacking 6 Eiffel Towers end to end. Up here, flat and usable land is almost non-existent. To survive in this enclosed basin, the early settlers had to physically conquer the steep terrain. They carved endless step-like terraces directly into the mountainsides to hold the loose soil in place. Tea cultivation became their ultimate survival mechanism. Without the deep roots of the tea plants firmly gripping the mountainside, the fragile topsoil would quickly wash away into the water below. This isolation comes with a heavy price. The very slopes that hide and sustain them are fundamentally unstable. During the intense monsoon season, the sheer terrain turns into a silent, looming threat. Massive landslides remain a constant risk. A single violent storm can easily wash out portions of the terraced fields and sever the only narrow, winding road that connects them to the outside world. When the road collapses, the entire community is instantly stranded without any access to emergency supplies. Yet the descendants of the original migrants refuse to leave. They took an isolated high-altitude basin and forced it to sustain life through intense physical labor and unbroken resilience. They built a permanent home where the terrain demanded emptiness. While these families reshaped the mountain to anchor their roots in the soil, other communities face landscapes that completely reject the plow. Deeper into the continent, another group of people survives on a barren plateau, where the ground is nothing but jagged stone, forcing them to build their entire existence from the dust up. Why build a home out of soft dirt in a landscape completely dominated by jagged, unforgiving stone, deep within the northern frontier of Vietnam, resting just a short distance from the border, sits Lo Lo Chai. It is a remote settlement entirely swallowed by the towering limestone peaks of the Dong Van Karst Plateau. In a region where sharp black rocks pierce the sky and arable land is an extreme luxury, the indigenous Lo Lo people construct their homes out of compacted earth. They pack damp clay into heavy wooden frames, pounding it layer by layer until it hardens into a dense shell. These rammed earth walls reach up to 2 feet thick. The village sits at an elevation of roughly 4,900 feet, a height that plunges the community into bone-chilling temperatures during the brutal winter months. The thick dirt walls act as a vital fortress against the extreme climate-trapping heat when the frost sets in, and keeping interiors cool under the scorching summer sun. To secure enough food, families must cultivate corn in tiny isolated pockets of soil hidden between razor-sharp boulders, fighting the mountain for every single harvest. The hidden danger here is the sheer geological hostility of the karst environment. There is almost no surface water to be found on this porous rock. Prolonged droughts can instantly threaten their fragile crops, while sudden violent mountain storms risk washing away the thin topsoil they desperately depend on. If a harvest fails, the winding, treacherous mountain passes make outside assistance incredibly difficult to reach. Generations have quietly thrived in this isolated borderland. They did not try to conquer the stone around them. They simply found a way to coexist within its cracks, shaping a resilient existence from the very dust beneath their feet. While the residents of Lolo Chai chose Earth to survive the harsh mountains, another hidden community decided to take a much heavier path. What happens when a settlement abandons soft soil entirely and builds their everyday existence out of solid rock? Why would a community construct elevated stilt houses using the heaviest, most unforgiving material on Earth? Hidden deep within the dense forests of Cao Bang, near the remote northern border of Vietnam, lies Khuoi Ki. It is an ancient, silent settlement completely swallowed by towering limestone peaks. Normally, indigenous mountain houses rely on lightweight bamboo or flexible timber to keep their elevated floors stable. Here, the local people decided to build their everyday existence out of massive hand-cut stone blocks. Some of these rock walls measure nearly 2 feet thick, turning a simple family dwelling into a primitive fortress that weighs tens of thousands of pounds. Many of these imposing stone structures have stood firmly in place for over 400 years, outlasting the rise and fall of modern empires. To survive in a region dominated by sharp karst geology and severely limited resources, the villagers had to adapt to the very rock that restricted them. They extract heavy limestone directly from the surrounding cliffs. Builders carefully stack the raw, uneven rocks by hand, locking them together without the use of modern steel or concrete. The dense walls act as a vital thermal shield. They protect families from freezing winter mountain winds while trapping cool air during the suffocating summer heat. However, relying on sheer gravity and friction creates a constant, silent threat. These multi-ton homes rest on uneven mountain soil that is heavily prone to sudden flash floods and intense seasonal erosion. If the foundational earth shifts even a fraction of an inch under that massive weight, an entire wall of solid rock could instantly collapse inward. A single structural failure would easily crush anyone sleeping inside. Yet generation after generation chooses to remain in this quiet, shadowed valley. They refuse to abandon the heavy burden of their harsh environment, choosing instead to assemble their legacy one stone at a time. While these villagers stacked raw mountain rock to forge an enduring home, another ancient society chose a much softer material to achieve extreme longevity. What happens when a community builds a towering multi-story fortress completely out of mud and manages to keep it standing for more than 1,000 years? How does a massive multi-story fortress built entirely out of mud survive centuries of harsh winds without crumbling to dust? Resting on a high plateau in New Mexico, United States, you will find Taos, Pueblo. This is not an abandoned archaeological ruin, but a fully functioning Native American community where multi-story earthen buildings have stood continuously for more than 1,000 years. Today, more than 150 residents still live inside these ancient structures, which function almost like an ancient skyscraper standing alone in the high desert. Surviving here requires an unending cycle of physical labor. The buildings are made using packed earth mixed with clay, straw, and water, relying on no concrete or steel support to stay upright. Because these natural materials are highly vulnerable to weather, the community must work together each year to repair and recoat the thick walls, essentially rebuilding the skin of their homes by hand. Historically, this settlement was designed strictly for survival in a hostile territory. Traditional design avoided ground-level doors entirely, using wooden ladders through the roof to improve defense during periods of historical conflict. The hidden danger here is the unforgiving environment of the wide, high desert plateau itself. Extreme temperature drops, violent summer thunderstorms, and relentless winter snows constantly threaten to melt the unbaked earth back into the ground. If the people ever abandon their annual recoating rituals, the entire 1,000-year-old settlement would simply wash away into the dirt in a matter of decades. Their survival is a living testament to an unbreakable bond between a people and the earth they stand on. It proves that true permanence is not about using indestructible materials, but about a community's relentless will to maintain them. While these desert dwellers dedicate their lives to molding soft mud into enduring fortresses, other humans have chosen to let a violent planet do the building for them. What kind of society bypasses normal construction entirely and decides to carve their living rooms straight into the heart of towering volcanic rock instead of laying bricks? What if you carved your bedroom straight into a tower of hardened volcanic ash? Hidden in the rugged mountains of northwestern Iran lies Kandovan. This is a village where people live directly inside cone-shaped rock formations created from ancient volcanic ash and hardened lava. When you walk through this surreal settlement, it feels like stepping onto the surface of an alien planet. The residents here completely bypassed normal construction. Families carved deep into solid stone to form multi-level rooms, cutting stairways into rock and expanding inward instead of building outward. Some rock cones rise more than 30 feet high, about 5 times taller than an average adult, shaped naturally over thousands of years before habitation. The porous volcanic stone helps regulate interior conditions, turning fossilized lava columns into stable living spaces for generations. Local tradition says their ancestors chose stone homes for protection and durability, and descendants continue living in the same carved spaces today. But living inside geological formations carries a permanent, silent risk. What might happen if erosion continues over time? Nature never stops weathering these ancient pillars. Fierce mountain winds, freezing winter temperatures, and seasonal rains constantly eat away at the outer shell of the stone. If the rock degrades too much, or if a structural fault develops deep within the pillar, a multi-story home could suddenly fracture and collapse inward. The answer to their survival lies in thick rock walls and careful carving that preserves the natural load-bearing core. These families exist in perfect, delicate balance with the extreme geology around them. They have transformed the violent aftermath of an ancient eruption into a lasting sanctuary, proving that human endurance can merge seamlessly with the most bizarre landscapes on Earth. While these villagers molded raw volcanic stone to create a protective shell, other isolated communities manipulate the Earth for a much darker purpose. When your environment offers no physical fortress, how do you defend your tribe against the unknown? You take the very dirt beneath your feet and turn your own body into a terrifying, unrecognizable force of nature. What if the only way to protect your family was to erase your humanity entirely and become a monster born from the earth? Hidden deep within the remote highlands of Papua New Guinea, the Asaro Valley remains one of the most unsettling corners of the globe. You are looking at a community that survives not by hiding, but by wielding absolute psychological terror. In this isolated settlement, men completely coat their bodies in pale river mud and wear grotesque, oversized clay masks. They carve twisted, exaggerated features into the wet earth. When they emerge during traditional rituals, they move in total, eerie silence. To anyone watching, they do not look like men. They appear as vengeful spirits rising directly out of the soil. The village sits roughly 5,000 feet above sea level, locked away in dense, unpredictable mountain jungle. The raw river clay used to craft these hollow masks is incredibly dense. A finished piece can easily weigh over 10 pounds. The wearer must support the equivalent of a heavy bowling ball purely on their neck and shoulders while navigating uneven, slippery terrain. This bizarre custom was born out of desperate self-preservation. In a territory historically defined by brutal, relentless tribal warfare, the Asaro people were once severely outnumbered. Lacking superior weapons, they weaponized the local fear of ghosts. By coating themselves in deathly gray mud and appearing silently through the highland fog, they forced rival warriors to flee in sheer panic without a single weapon being swung. But the true threat in this valley goes far beyond rival tribes. The highland environment is inherently hostile. Violent seasonal rains can instantly trigger massive mudslides, and the sheer geographic isolation leaves the tribe entirely cut off from the outside world. If a severe injury occurs or a crucial crop fails, there is no emergency rescue coming for them. Their existence highlights a profound truth about human endurance. When the world corners you, survival sometimes demands becoming the most terrifying thing in the shadows. While the Asaro people used the earth to scare away intruders, other societies chose to retreat from humanity altogether. Deep within an unforgiving tropical rainforest, another group built a closed world so completely swallowed by the mountains that even finding it requires hours of punishing physical endurance. How far would you walk away from civilization just to build a home that the modern world could never reach? Located on a high mountain slope deep inside a remote tropical forest, Rebo Mountain Village is one of the most unusual and isolated ancient villages in Indonesia. There is no road that reaches the village by vehicle. The dense canopy and rugged topography actively reject modern transportation. The final part of the journey requires about 3 to 4 hours of steep hiking through forest trails. Rebo stands about 3,600 feet above sea level among dense mountains and forest, so the village already exists far beyond ordinary living conditions. At this elevation, resting higher than most modern skyscrapers, you are completely cut off from the conveniences of the 21st century. At the end of the grueling trek, the forest opens to reveal a surreal sight. The entire community consists of traditional cone-shaped houses, arranged in a circle around a ceremonial yard, forming a closed living structure high in the mountains. These massive thatched structures are architectural marvels built for absolute self-reliance. Each Mbaru Niang house has 5 functional levels used for living space, food storage, and ritual activities, showing how people adapt to isolation in a difficult landscape. However, absolute seclusion breeds hidden threats. The very geography that protects them also traps them. A severe monsoon can easily trigger landslides that wipe out the fragile footpaths, leaving families entirely stranded. Without roads, a sudden medical emergency turns into a frantic, life-threatening race against time down treacherous, muddy slopes. Rebo survives as a rare mountain settlement where people continue living among steep slopes and deep forest, far beyond the easy reach of the modern world. These families willingly trade safety and convenience for an unbroken connection to their ancestral land. They accept extreme physical endurance as the daily cost of preserving their ancient sanctuary. Yet hiking for hours through a dense rainforest is only one method of escaping society. What if an entire agricultural society decided to lock themselves away on a vast elevated plateau guarded from the rest of the planet by hundreds of miles of impenetrable terrain? How does an entire agricultural society exist in a place where modern roads simply disappear into the jungle? Hidden deep within the northern mountains of Borneo, in Malaysia, the Bario Highlands sit completely walled off from the rest of the world. This is a remote settlement located within a wide highland plateau, existing completely detached from normal transport routes. You are looking at a permanent island of civilization trapped inside a massive ocean of impenetrable wilderness. Bario stands about 3,500 feet above sea level, creating the striking image of a small community placed on a high layer of land among mountains. The plateau covers roughly 50 square miles, presenting an open, flat landscape completely surrounded by rugged, jagged terrain. That is a flat sanctuary, larger than many modern cities, floating high above the equatorial canopy. Accessing this basin usually requires threading a small propeller plane through unpredictable, cloud-choked mountain passes. Because they are severed from global supply chains, the indigenous residents had to master absolute self-reliance. They transformed this enclosed valley into a highly productive agricultural zone, cultivating rice fields and grasslands that spread extensively across the flat landscape. Wooden houses and cultivated fields extend through the valley, connected only by narrow earth paths. They survive by consuming exactly what the highland soil provides, maintaining a quiet farming settlement resting deep inside the highland. However, this vast open isolation carries a silent, permanent threat. The very same mountain ridges that form a clear, open space to protect them also physically trap them. Any severe medical emergency instantly becomes a high-stakes race against the weather. If dense tropical fogs or violent rainstorms ground the small aircraft, the entire community is entirely cut off from outside help. There is no driving out of Bario. These residents have taken profound geographical isolation and turned it into an enduring, self-sustaining sanctuary. They do not wait for the modern world to reach them because they built their own world first. While these farmers thrive in a stationary valley protected by green mountain walls, other isolated communities must survive by refusing to stand still. What happens when your vast landscape offers zero physical shelter and staying in one place means freezing to death? How do you survive in an environment so brutal that even your house cannot afford to stand still? Sweeping across the high frozen steppes of western Mongolia lies Sagsai. It is a vast, unforgiving expanse where distant rocky mountains form natural walls around a seemingly endless, desolate valley. In this extreme landscape, human beings do not lay deep foundations or build permanent stone walls. Instead, nomadic families survive by constantly running from the fatal grip of the changing seasons. They live entirely inside portable round tents, dismantling their homes to move dozens of miles each year in a relentless search for new pasture for their livestock. To feed their families across this wide, open, freezing grassland, the locals rely on an extraordinary partnership. Hunters train wild golden eagles to assist in capturing small animals across the open steppe. A fully grown golden eagle can reach a wingspan close to 7 feet, giving the bird enough immense power to control prey during incredibly fast dives. But relying on the open plains is a terrifying daily gamble. The absolute isolation means that a single unpredictable winter blizzard can bury the vital grasslands under impenetrable snow. The temperature frequently drops so low that the very air feels like shards of glass in your lungs. If the herds freeze and the eagles cannot spot their targets in the whiteout conditions, an entire family faces sudden, silent starvation. They exist entirely at the mercy of the sky, living days away from the nearest medical clinic or emergency supply route. Their existence is a raw testament to extreme human adaptability. They endure the absolute desolation of the steppe, not by trying to conquer the wilderness, but by moving perfectly in sync with its harsh, unforgiving rhythm. While these nomads must constantly wander across a vast, exposed ocean of grass to stay alive, other communities face the exact opposite geographical nightmare. What happens when your open world suddenly shrinks, trapping your entire society in a tight, suffocating space between a rushing river and towering walls of jagged limestone. What happens when the world shrinks until there is nothing left but a rushing river and a vertical wall of stone? Hidden deep within northern Laos' Nong Khiaw is a small town set inside a narrow valley surrounded by limestone mountains and a river flowing through its center. It feels less like a typical rural settlement and more like a geographic trap. The karst landscape formed over millions of years as water dissolved limestone, leaving a tight valley just wide enough for settlement. Nature did not design this place for human habitation. The cliffs around the town rise about 1,600 feet high, equal to more than 150 building floors stacked together. When you walk across the bridge over the river, towering rock walls enclosing both sides make you clearly feel the natural isolation shaping this entire town. Because flat land is extremely limited, houses stand close to the riverbank, making daily life, fishing, and transport depend directly on the water. The people here cannot expand outward, so they mold their existence into the narrow cracks of the earth. They have even relied on the hostile terrain for survival. During the 20th century, residents used natural caves as shelters during conflict, turning geological formations into protective spaces. But living completely wedged between deep water and sheer rock brings a terrifying, suffocating threat. When the intense tropical monsoons hit the vertical limestone walls, act like a giant funnel, pouring massive volumes of water directly into the tight basin. Violent flash floods can quickly swallow the riverside homes. At the same time, the towering, rain-soaked cliffs constantly threaten to unleash sudden, deadly rockfalls right onto the fragile rooftops. If disaster strikes, there is no easy escape route out of the valley because the terrain itself forms an impenetrable fortress, yet the community remains firmly anchored to this narrow sliver of earth. They have accepted the claustrophobic embrace of the mountains, forging a quiet resilience in a landscape that constantly threatens to crush them. While these villagers survived by surrendering to the tight shape of the valley, other ancient societies completely refused to be contained by gravity. What if instead of hiding at the bottom of a steep mountain, an entire civilization decided to physically carve a towering peak into a massive climbing staircase? What if the only way to secure a future for your family was to physically carve an entire mountain into pieces using nothing but your bare hands? Look at the Ifugao rice terrace villages in the Philippines. In this soaring, cloud-covered region, the steep mountainsides have been turned into massive layers of rice fields that resemble the steps of a giant natural staircase. The sheer scale of this human achievement defies basic logic. Here, the terraces spread across about 62,000 acres on mountain slopes, rising above 8,000 feet, covering an area similar to a medium-sized city, and climbing upward like a massive wall of land. Many studies show that this terrace system has existed for about 2,000 years, meaning the fields clinging to these slopes are older than many modern nations. You cannot easily build a life on a near-vertical cliff. The terrain here is steep and vulnerable to landslides, so every level of farmland must be held in place by stone and earth walls that grip tightly onto the mountain. To keep the fragile crops alive, water for the entire system is guided from forests on the mountain's summit, through narrow channels flowing from terrace to terrace, like an irrigation network suspended along the cliff. However, carving your home into the side of the sky comes with terrifying, ever-present risks. The entire settlement balances precariously within a highly active geological zone. Even today, UNESCO continues to warn that the region faces powerful earthquakes and increasing damage risks from repeated storms and floods. A single violent tremor could easily shatter the ancient retaining walls. If a higher terrace gives way during a severe typhoon, the cascading wave of mud and rock would instantly crush the farming villages clinging to the slopes below. These indigenous farmers did not simply adapt to the highlands. They forcefully bent a colossal peak to their will, holding an entire mountain together through sheer unbroken generational endurance. But what happens when you run out of mountains to carve? When solid rock is no longer an option, some communities abandon the earth entirely, choosing to stake their fragile existence on shifting coastal tides and deep sinking mud. How do you build a permanent neighborhood on a foundation that constantly dissolves beneath your feet? Tucked away at the western edge of Hong Kong, Taos, is a fishing village where wooden houses stand on deep stilts in coastal mud, forming a settlement partly on land and partly over water. You will not find asphalt or solid rock in this hidden pocket of the world. Instead, hundreds of wooden homes cluster tightly together with fishing boats anchored at each doorway and long rows of seafood hanging beside narrow paths. The architecture here relies entirely on precarious balance. The stilt houses are built close to one another and connected by slim wooden walkways instead of concrete streets across the wet ground. This settlement has defied the odds for generations. Taos has existed for more than 300 years, older than modern landmarks like Burj Khalifa, and families still rely on the same wooden foundations. What allowed wooden posts driven into mud to support an entire community for centuries, while modern neighborhoods depend on steel and concrete? The answer lies in stilt design, adapted to tides and constant maintenance by residents. They survive by treating their homes like docked vessels, consistently replacing rotting timber before the heavy coastal waters can swallow their living rooms. However, balancing a life over sinking mud brings a relentless, creeping danger. The corrosive salt water never stops eating away at their only support system. When fierce tropical typhoons batter the coast, the fragile wooden maze faces total devastation. After major storms during the 20th century, residents repeatedly repaired and rebuilt their homes, turning reconstruction into part of community memory. A single massive storm surge can easily snap these ancient pillars, instantly plunging entire families into the turbulent currents below. Their endurance is a quiet rebellion against extreme vulnerability. They choose to live in a constant state of repair, binding their legacy to the very tides that constantly threaten to erase them. While these residents keep one foot anchored in the shallow coastal mud, other aquatic communities push this fragile concept to a terrifying extreme. What happens when a society abandons the shoreline completely and builds an entire sprawling village on nothing but wooden poles directly over the open ocean? What drives a community to build an entire town, including a functioning soccer field, where there is absolutely no earth to stand on? In the coastal waters of Thailand stands Panyee, a village that makes many visitors curious because nearly the entire settlement rests on wooden stilts above the sea. You are looking at a society that completely rejected the safety of the mainland. The community began forming more than 200 years ago when fishing families built elevated homes to adapt to living over the sea. They did not just construct a few isolated shacks. Wooden houses stand close together and are linked by boardwalk paths and small docks which shape a compact, floating neighborhood. Today, about 1,000 people live in Panyee, with most residents staying in stilt houses, supported by wooden poles fixed into the seabed. Walking along narrow wooden walkways between stilt houses, you can observe daily fishing life taking place directly above the surrounding water. Another notable detail is that villagers constructed a floating soccer field using wooden planks, so children and adults could play sports above the water. To survive without a single inch of soil, the residents engineered a sprawling grid of timber that functions like a living organism. The entire town's immense weight relies completely on deep poles driven into the dark mud below. But suspending a massive interconnected village over the ocean brings a permanent, inescapable threat. The corrosive salt water never stops eating away at the submerged foundations. During the brutal monsoon season, the danger multiplies. A severe ocean storm could easily fracture the outermost wooden pylons. If a massive wave breaches the perimeter, the structural strain could rip the interconnected boardwalks apart instantly, sending hundreds of homes plunging into the violent currents. These families understand the risk of total collapse every single day. Yet they choose to stay, turning a fragile wooden maze into a multi-generational fortress of endurance. They have proven that human willpower can conquer the open ocean. While this massive stilt network remains rigidly anchored to the seabed, other societies learned to move with the water itself. How do you survive when your entire village, from your transportation to your farm, must gracefully glide across the surface of a deep lake? How do you harvest a crop from a garden that floats or steer a wooden canoe when both of your hands are busy casting heavy fishing nets? In the mountains of Myanmar, there is a village called Intha, floating villages, where people built an entire community on water and continue living in a landscape filled with constant risk. At an elevation of nearly 3,000 feet above sea level, Intha floating villages show clear evidence of a community that transformed open water into a permanent place to live. The entire settlement stands on wooden stilts driven into the lakebed and connected by narrow walkways and boat docks, forming a fragile living space suspended above the water. To survive in this massive aquatic basin, the locals had to reinvent basic human movement. Here, the Intha people developed a unique way of rowing boats, with one leg standing at the stern and controlling the paddle to keep a clear view across reeds and floating gardens. They did not stop at simply moving across the surface. They learned to cultivate it. Floating gardens made from plants and lake mud are tied together and anchored with bamboo poles, turning the lake surface into long, drifting strips of farmland. However, relying entirely on a liquid foundation creates a terrifying vulnerability. The water stretches for more than 10 miles and becomes the main lifeline where all movement, fishing, and transport of goods depend entirely on small boats. Severe mountain winds can strike the valley without warning. When violent storms churn the massive lake, those fragile bamboo anchors are put to the ultimate test. If the poles snap a family's entire floating farm, their only source of food and income can simply drift away into the turbulent currents and be completely destroyed. The Intha people refuse to surrender to the fragility of their environment. They have mastered a graceful, fluid rhythm, proving that human beings can flourish even when they do not have a single patch of solid ground to stand on. While these villagers maintain a delicate balance on a steady, contained lake, other aquatic settlements face a much more unpredictable force. From the boat garages of Ain to the floating gardens of Inle Lake, these 15 communities have shown us that home is not defined by solid ground, easy roads, or modern comfort. It can be carved into volcanic rock, balanced above the ocean, hidden behind mountains, or carried across a frozen steppe. Each village survives by transforming danger into design isolation, into identity, and hardship into a way of life. But this journey is only halfway complete. In Part 2, we will travel deeper into places where the conditions become even more extreme. Villages suspended on cliffs, settlements surrounded by deserts, homes built beneath the earth, and communities surviving where heat, ice altitude, and isolation push human endurance to its absolute limit. The first 15 villages challenged what we believe is possible. The next 15 may completely redefine it. Join us in part 2, where survival becomes even more impossible.